Within some mythologies, the gods mingled among humans. Yes, even though they were vastly more powerful and could destroy the fabric of the world in an instant, they found the simple pleasures of life enjoyable enough to leave us be. Unless your name is Zeus, I guess. Despite this, it's unknown why the gods no longer walk among us and instead choose to watch us from whatever realm they now reside in. What if that wasn't the case? What if the gods and other beings who possess godlike power chose to still live among us? What is their true nature? Why haven't they revealed themselves? And are they still a threat to humanity? And if so, just how screwed would we be?
First off, I'm not interested in ordinary people. But if any of you are aliens, time travelers, or espers, please come see me. That is all.
Haruhi Suzumiya may look like a normal girl at first glance, but behind that normal demeanor hides a being who could destroy our very world accidentally. But you see, as long as you satisfy her curiosity, we're pretty much safe. That's partly why the SOS Brigade exists, a club whose sole purpose is to find the existence of aliens, espers, time travelers, or any supernatural being of any kind. Now I think Haruhi isn't naive. A part of her knows these things don't actually exist, but the funny thing is, they do, and Haruhi is the sole reason for their existence. In fact, she doesn't know that she's the most extraordinary person in the universe. Haruhi is a god, maybe not the god, but perhaps a figure who received the power of God for unknown reasons, and she's possibly the worst person to receive them. Her powers are basically reality warping on a crazy scale. She can change, create, or straight up destroy the world around her just by wanting something badly enough or feeling a certain way. She made aliens and time travelers real simply because she wished for them hard enough. Remember the members of the SOS Brigade: Yuki Nagito, the alien entity, Mikuru, the time traveler from the future, and Koizumi, the Esper. They all exist because Haruhi's subconscious made them pop into existence to match what she was looking for. She can mess with time itself, like creating endless loops of summer vacation where she doesn't want the break to end. She altered the weather, made cherry blossoms fall out of season, and changed multiple other things. If she believes something crazy should happen in club activities, it often becomes real, like her movie script bleeding into the actual world. On the darker side, she can erase things from existence just by denying that they should be there, or rewrite the laws of physics so everything falls apart. Basically, her thoughts and emotions act like an author that rewrite the story of the universe on the fly. She has an unconscious control over all of this. Haruhi has no idea she's doing any of it. Her powers run on pure instinct and emotion. She doesn't consciously decide to create an Esper or time loop. It just happens when she gets excited, annoyed, or wishes for an adventure hard enough. That's why it's super important that she never finds out her true nature. If she learns she's basically a god, two bad things could happen. One, she might get overwhelmed or scared, that her emotions go wild and accidentally wipe out reality. Two, she might start experimenting on purpose. She'll be even more dangerous because she's the kind of person who charges straight forward without thinking about the consequences. The SOS Brigade work overtime to keep her entertained so that her powers stay mostly chill, don't spiral into world-ending territory. As long as she's having fun, the rest of us keep living in a mostly normal world. Haruhi being clueless is probably the only reason we're still here. But what if we had a being who was aware of their full nature from the very beginning? Well, let me introduce you to Ajimu Najimi, a being who existed before the universe as we know it even existed. Long before humanity walked the earth, before civilizations rose and fell, before history itself began, Ajimu was always there. For countless thousands of years, she watched over mankind, observing humanity develop from the sidelines. As generations came and went, every now and then someone would catch her interest, and rather than simply watching them, she'd grant them incredible supernatural powers known as skills. Now in Madoka Box, skills are basically unique supernatural abilities that reflect a person's talents, personalities, or abnormal nature. Some are fairly simple, while others completely shatter the laws or reality. The thing is, Ajimu isn't just someone who hands out skills. She possesses almost all of them herself. We're talking about a little over 12 quadrillion. She has skills that lets her manipulate space, time, probability, death, knowledge, life, and pretty much every other aspect of reality you can think of. If there's an ability that could possibly exist, chances are that Ajimu already has it or could create it. Despite all this, Ajimu is surprisingly carefree. She's playful, sarcastic, and she almost never treats serious situations with the weight they deserve. After living since the beginning of existence, very little can actually surprise or impress her anymore. Most conflicts are nothing more than entertainment, and she often speaks as if she already knows exactly how everyone's story is going to end. Now with all this, you'd think Ajimu might be a god. Well, that's never directly stated or even implied. We can definitely make the argument based on evidence. She's simply far too old and powerful to feel like anything else. At the same time, it's entirely possible that she's something different altogether. Maybe she's an agent of some higher force, or perhaps the living embodiment of the concept of talent, ego, or human potential. What makes Ajimu even stranger is the fact that she breaks the fourth wall. On multiple occasions, she's aware of the story she's in, whether that means she's a god or simply a being whose perception exists beyond the boundaries of her own story is left intentionally ambiguous. But there's one thing that's clear, and that's that Ajimu understands her own existence on a level no one else possibly can. At first, the gas station attendant doesn't seem like anyone special. She's just a friendly attendant you briefly meet at the start of Persona 4, another ordinary face among the quiet residents of Inaba. She smiles, makes small talk, and then disappears into the background so completely that most players forget she was ever there. But our search for the truth continues. We slowly realize that the person who started this entire journey was standing right in front of us from the very beginning. That innocent gas station worker was actually Izanami, the true mastermind behind everything that happened in Inaba. In Persona 4, Izanami is an ancient deity born from humanity's collective unconscious. She isn't simply a god that watches over mankind from afar. She's the manifestation of humanity's deepest desires and contradictions, created by the thoughts and wishes of the people themselves. Long ago, she observed humanity constantly running away from painful truths, choosing comforting lies over harsh reality to determine whether mankind truly desired the truth, or rather blissful ignorance. She decided to conduct an experiment. She granted several individuals the power to enter the TV world and sat back to watch humanity's answer unfold. The TV world itself is one of Izanami's greatest creations, a parallel realm shaped by the human mind where suppressed emotions and hidden desires take physical form. Within it, the TV manifests countless shadows, beings born from parts of our mind. Every person's shadow represents emotions and impulses buried deep inside, and rejecting those feelings only causes the shadow to become violent and dangerous. She also utilizes multiple fragments of herself to carry out different aspects of her plan, including Amano Sukiri and Kasumi no Okami, each serving as extensions of her will in guiding humanity towards the conclusion she believed they desired. Throughout the Midnight Channel, the mysterious fog, and the TV world itself, nearly every supernatural event in Persona 4 can ultimately be traced back to Izanami. Her own abilities are exactly what you'd expect from a goddess. She possesses immense power within the TV world. The fog is perhaps the most important part of her power. It's more than just weather phenomena. It's a physical manifestation of ignorance and self-deception. The thicker the fog spreads, the harder it becomes for people to distinguish truth from illusion. Eventually it threatens to merge the TV world into reality itself, creating a world where humanity can forever hide from painful truths and difficult choices. Unlike the previous two though, she isn't a careless god like Haruhi, nor is she an ancient observer like Ajimu. She's a god of her own creation, a being born from humanity's collective unconscious and shaped by what people truly desire. And despite everything she does, Izanami isn't evil in a traditional sense. She doesn't spread suffering because she enjoys it, nor does she seek power for her own sake. In her mind, she's simply giving humanity exactly what it wants, a world wrapped in comforting fog, where no one has to confront painful realities ever again. Yogiri Takato looks like the most ordinary kid you could possibly imagine. He's a laid-back Japanese high school boy who would much rather be sleeping through class, playing video games, or hanging out with his best friends than do anything particularly exciting. He isn't loud, ambitious, or desperate to prove himself. In fact, he spends most of his time looking completely uninterested in whatever is happening. If you walked past him on the street, you'd never give him a second glance. But that's exactly what makes Yogiri so terrifying, because the boy you see isn't Yogiri's true form. He's just a vessel. In reality, Yogiri Takato's true nature is something far beyond any human, god, or even abstract concept in his universe. Before the world existed, before time began flowing, before reality had fully taken shape, the end already existed. Not simply death, but the inevitable conclusion that awaits absolutely everything. Yogiri is simply the human form of this primordial entity. He's a living embodiment of the final destination of all existence, the point where every story, every universe, every timeline, every possibility eventually comes to an end in a cosmology of instant death. The entity represents one of the fundamental rules governing the ultimate ensemble, a totality of every multiverse, every possible reality, every conceivable world. Everything that begins must eventually return to it. More importantly, its existence serves as reality's final safeguard, ensuring nothing can grow so powerful that completely unravels creation itself. Because of that, Yogiri's abilities aren't really abilities at all. They're simply expressions of what he already is. His signature power, instant death, isn't some magical attack or supernatural technique. It's the end imposing itself onto reality. The moment Yogiri decides that something should die, it dies. It doesn't matter if you're immortal, a god, an abstract concept, a machine, a soul, a higher dimensional being, or something that technically isn't alive. The instant he says die, that's exactly what happens. If he decides that something should come to an end, reality simply accepts that verdict. Despite possessing the power to erase literally anything in existence, he's still an apathetic teenager who wants a quiet life. He isn't interested in ruling the universe, proving his strength, or becoming some feared god. Most of the time, he uses his power in self-defense or protect one of his comrades. If left alone, he'd happily spend his days sleeping through class or playing video games with his friends. Tenchi Masaki is a definition of ordinary. He's just a kind-hearted teenage boy living a peaceful life in rural Japan, helping around his grandfather's shrine, going to school, and trying to survive every day. But as the story unfolds, it becomes painfully clear that Tenchi was not an ordinary human to begin with. In reality, the boy we've been following is merely the mortal vessel of something far greater, a being only known as Kami Tenchi. Long before the universe as we know it existed, there were the Choshin, 3 superdimensional goddesses named Washu, Tsunami, and Tokimi. They created the multiverse itself, along with countless higher dimensions, believing that somewhere beyond them existed a being greater than they could ever truly comprehend. For ages, they searched for that existence, creating worlds and life itself as part of that experiment. What they didn't realize was that the being they had been searching for all along had eventually been born as Tenchi Masaki. Kami Tenchi isn't simply stronger than a Choshin. He's the very existence they spent eternity trying to find, a being who was higher than them in every way. Because of that, trying to describe Kami Tenchi's abilities is almost impossible. Even Tenchi's ordinary form can generate the legendary Lighthawk wings, manifestations of divine power capable of protecting entire worlds, creating matter from pure energy, and stopping attacks that threaten the universe itself. But those are merely glimpses of the power his human body can barely contain. Kami Tenchi exists beyond the dimensions they rule over, beyond the systems they create, beyond the very framework of the universe itself. Reality, time, space, and the countless worlds born from the Choshin are all ultimately beneath him, because he's a higher existence from which everything else traces its origin. The funny thing is, Tenchi himself couldn't care less about any of that. Despite unknowingly being the supreme existence of his cosmology, he continues acting like the same person everyone has always known.